Today, we're talking with Cardinals beat reporter and friend of the podcast, Donnie Druin, to get some inside information. And my co host, Charlotte, brings us her positivity playbook segment. Stay tuned.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast with Kelly Singh.
Murray keeps it downfield. It is. Oh, it's caught. It is caught. DeAndre Hopkins. Miraculous. It's Murray magic.
The sickest Arizona Cardinals podcast. It's gonna be sick.
Welcome to the sickest Arizona Cardinals podcast. I'm your host, Kelly Singh. I'm bringing in my co-host here, Charlotte Shaff, for Char's Positivity Playbook, which is a new segment where she's sharing some uplifting stories along with just relevant local Cardinals news. Charlotte, how are you today?
I am doing well. It's another hot week in August. And I already hear from some of my friends who have been in the Midwest and the East Coast that they're starting to see the leaves change. I'm like, man, we are so far away from that.
I can confirm because I was in Canton, Ohio for the Fantasy Football Expo, and it was sweater weather, at least for me. I was all up in my sweatshirt vibes while we were there for the weekend. And now I'm in California at Trophy Smack. It's meh. It's not amazing, but it's not hot like Phoenix.
Right. I get that.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, you have 3 bits of news to share with us today. Why don't we start with why Phoenix pro sports teams and other sporting events are relying on premium seating? What is the story behind that?
Well, just recently, Michael Bidwell, the head of the Thunderbirds and another sports organization, did an event with the Phoenix Business Journal. I actually wish that I was able to go there, but they basically talked about sports and business in Phoenix and why it is really important here. I think we all know that the Phoenix Open or the Waste Management Open is really the place to be for pretty much any business owner or sports enthusiast. It is an amazing time and they're making a ton of money and they're able to bring in a lot of money for the charities too. Bidwell talked about, all the high-end hospitality offerings that the Cardinals are actually behind when it comes to this kind of stuff. Other sports teams have been doing this kind of stuff for a while. He's definitely ruffled a lot of feathers from a lot of Cardinals fans who were rehomed to a different area this year. I am still very curious to hear if anyone has actually been in the Casita area. The price is a pretty penny. And while I know that sports and NFL is big business, it's definitely something unattainable for us common folk. So while I understand the business element of it, I would be curious to see what people think of the casitas. And I actually came upon this interesting guy on YouTube today that was going off about, this is right after training camp and before the preseason game, that he thought it was interesting that there was nothing built during the training camp, and so we couldn't really see anything. So he thought that was kind of interesting that people are going to pay top dollar and we don't even see anything structured yet. So anyway, I think that it is good for business and I'm very curious to hear how this all goes throughout the rest of the season.
Yeah, for sure. I know that the only thing we really could see were those field level leather seats on the platform, and there was nobody in them. So
Yeah,
I guess we'll have to wait and see.
I guess so. I guess so.
Next story you're bringing us is about the Cardinals and Darius Robinson being right where he needs to be. What does that mean?
That means that everybody is loving him. They're loving what he's doing on the field. He definitely made a great impression in the first preseason game. And when Gannon was asked in a recent press conference, the odds of him starting in the regular season, it was a quote of 1,000%. So I think that's a great thing for Darius, and I think he's really going to offer a lot to this team this year, and people are very thrilled to see him, and he just seems like he has an amazing work ethic, and he is definitely worthy of being a first rounder draft pick. So go Darius.
Go Darius. We've been fans,
Mhm.
especially you, because isn't he the one from Michigan?
Yes, he is a Michigander. So even though he went to Mizzou, that's okay. I love it. He's from Michigan, so that always is something appealing to me.
And last main story that you have news from the scrimmage between the Colts and the Cardinals.
Yes, there was a lot of highlights and celebrity in regards to what's happening in Indianapolis right now. They're actually about 45 minutes away from downtown Indianapolis, where they're all doing their practices. But Marvin Harrison, not Junior, was there to say hello to fans, and his son obviously is doing a lot of interviews talking about being in Indianapolis. How does this feel? Bringing back memories. One of the reporters asked him who his favorite player was growing up, and he kind of like looked around and he's like, my dad, which I thought was hilarious. And then also, I love Edgerrin James, and obviously he's now a Hall of Famer and everybody loves him with the Colts, but he was able to talk about a lot of positive things with the Cardinals. The fact that he was on the Super Bowl team and he really saw them starting to make a change when he was there. And that's always a great thing to see, because even though he's wearing that blue for the Colts, he still has lots of positive things to say about the Cardinals, and that always is a great thing to see.
The ringing endorsement for sure.
Mhm.
One of the things I noticed that came out of that scrimmage and the photos there were shirts being worn by the coaching staff that said mental health is health. And so similar to the Crucial Catch campaign that will happen in October, they're running right now with a mental health campaign. I think that's amazing. I love that we're talking about mental health. We had Hayden Hurst from the Chargers here at the office, and being able to talk about mental health with him. He runs the Hayden Hurst Foundation, which is a whole mental health podcast podathon. There's a foundation obviously behind it, but there's a whole month of podcasts that support it. So beyond just one player trying to make a difference, now we have the entire league getting in there, and I love it.
It means a lot, and I really hope that that message resonates with a lot of men who are watching that, because yes, your mental health is important, and it's important for your entire well-being, your family, your coworkers, your children. Mental health is important, and it's not something to feel like you're too good for it. We all sometimes need a little help. So
Exactly. Love it. Do you have any other things you need to share with us today?
I just want to wish a very happy birthday to one of my absolute favorite Arizona Cardinals, and that would be Bertrand Berry, B Train. I fell in love with him when it came to around the Super Bowl, and then tweeting with him through the years. I met him in person. He always smells so good. And I want to wish him a very happy birthday. He is not in the 50 club, but he's close. He's 49 this year. So happy birthday, B Train.
Yay, happy birthday. Smells so good. I think it's funny. That's one of the things we pick up on as ladies, because anytime I've been near an athlete, it's one of the first things that stands out. Somebody
Oh,
asked me if Cole Kmet smelled good because I was near him. I'm like, you know what? It did not stand out to me. So Cole Kmet, no scent. David Njoku, wonderful scent.
I love it. I love it. Yeah.
All right, Char, thanks so much for this. I feel uplifted and also full of curiosity as it relates to these new Cabana areas, and we'll just have to keep our eyes open.
Yeah, you bet. And if anybody needs a +1, please call me.
Please call her. All right. Well, we'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Next up, I'm bringing in our favorite beat reporter, Donnie Druin. Donnie, thank you so much for making time for me. I appreciate it because I know your time is so valuable. But, you've been very busy. You've been at camp every single day. I only made a handful of days, but your job is to be there every single day. And now we're in the preseason, and I have a couple of burning questions for you, and know that you are the one with all the info. Is that
Hopefully,
right?
hopefully, it's what the streets are saying. So we'll see.
This is what the streets are saying. I'm just going to go right into it. Um, First and foremost, let's talk about Michael Wilson. Last year, I loved watching him play. I thought he was so talented. And now we're going into this season, and he looks even stronger. So last season, there was a bit of an injury hiccup. Has that come up at all in conversation? Is it water under the bridge? He looks great. What are your thoughts on Michael Wilson?
Yeah, so it has been a topic of conversation because that was something that plagued him during his college days at Stanford. And I think his rookie season with Arizona kind of perfectly encapsulated what his college career was. Whenever he was on the field, he was very productive. He looked very, very strong as a boundary receiver out there. But unfortunately, injuries really hampered him. And I think in order to become the best at what you can do in the NFL, the best ability you're going to have is availability. And I think that Michael Wilson has really preached not only during training camp, but throughout the entire offseason, Kelly, is look, I know I need to be out there for this football team to get to where they want to be. I know I need to be out there in order to get to where I want to be on a personal level, just as a receiver for Kyler Murray and the rest of the crew. I think having a full offseason, knowing the playbook, knowing what it's like to be a professional football player for one entire regular season now, with the strength training really coming around, with him being able to relax, Kelly, because a lot of people don't realize that for a player entering the NFL draft, they're going straight from their season to a bowl game to a playoff game, whatever it may be, and they're jumping right into maybe a college all-star game like the Senior Bowl, and then they're prepping for the NFL Combine. Then after that, they're prepping for their pro day. Like, there's really no off time for these guys, right? There's really no, because as soon as they get drafted, they go to wherever they're at, and then they have to start learning the playbook. They have rookie mini camp and regular mini camp and OTAs and then training camp. Then they jump into preseason. It's really a nonstop grind. So I think it was really key for a guy like Michael Wilson to really kind of be able to take some time to let his body rest, to let his body recuperate. And then, like I previously touched on, to have that NFL strength training offseason program to really make sure that he's in the best shape of his life, which is something that he highlighted to us. And he passes the eye test. He looks stronger. He looks faster. He looks everything like you thought a Michael Wilson should look like in year two. So it is a talking point, but maybe not for the reasons a lot of people outside of the desert might believe it to be.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, you are so right. It's just one thing after another. It's very overwhelming. And now having that behind him, he can really focus in on what's needed. And man, he just looked so good. I mean, and even in comparison to Marvin Harrison Jr., who everybody's so excited about, he's going through the very same things that Michael Wilson did, but hopefully, because he has kind of that legacy with his father, that he has a little bit more in the know. He's been asked to perform at a higher level than Michael Wilson would have been going into his rookie year. So there is some differences there, and I could see them both performing on the same level at that point. Do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. And a bunch of players have said it. You don't get drafted with the fourth overall pick as a receiver if you are not crazy capable of putting up a video game like numbers in a National Football League. That's just something that does
Yeah.
not happen. Granted, it's a passing league, and the game does trend more towards the quarterbacks and the receivers a little bit more each and every year. But still, at the end of the day, you look at guys like Justin Jefferson, and some of the more other receivers like Jamar Chase, who are probably going to get paid within the next couple of years or
Yeah.
so. They make a lot of money, and for good reason. And I think having a guy like Marvin Harrison Jr. on the very team-friendly rookie receiver contract should do very well for the Cardinals. But back to the whole rookie preparation thing, Marv actually got a lot of flack during his pre-draft process because he didn't go to the combine. He
Right.
didn't work out his pro day, and everybody had pointed the finger at him and said, "Oh my gosh, how could you do this? Like, you are so selfish." And in reality, it was him just wanting to get ready for football season. I think it was a very good job by him and his father, who helped kind of prepare him through the offseason, to say, "Hey, look, we know you're going to go as a top 5 pick. You don't need to participate in the dog and pony show. You just make sure you're ready for an 18-week football season." And I think that's the route he took. And by all accounts, Kelly, I mean, he looks everything. The Maserati engine revved that training camp almost every day. So I do not think he made a mistake there.
I don't think so either. And Shar and I talked about that last week, about how he's gotten flack for not participating in combine, how his jersey's still not out, which is another story. But I think all of that goes back to players are people. They are learning more and more about the marketing side of being an athlete, and we cannot fault them for that. This is their day job. You and I would go out and seek a raise if there was an opportunity. You and I go out and seek the best benefits when it comes to
Mhm.
our employment. And I don't see anything different in this case. Negotiating a contract, not going to combine because the risk of injury, knowing that you are in the top
Yeah, there's just
5,
no point.
and not even the risk of injury, but you mentioned the dog and pony show. There's just no reason to travel, all of those things.
Yeah. And well, here's a lot of people love watching the combine on TV. And while the testing is important, the most important part of that kind of week stretch in Indianapolis are the medical evaluations and then the player interviews that teams get to have
Yeah.
with those guys. That's the biggest benefit. And, I think the Chiefs left early this past offseason because Andy Reid said, look, we can watch the cut ups. Like it's broadcasting on TV now. It's not like how it used to be on Saturday at like a 9 a.m. Like it's a premier primetime event for a reason. I don't want to speak too much on the Fanatics thing because I don't know too
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
much
yeah,
about
yeah. Me
whatever, but
either.
I mean, we're talking like giving a 22-year-old
Yeah.
millions of dollars with like legal implications to it. I don't know if you could trust me with a handful of $1 million, let alone a guy like Marvin Harrison Jr., who surely had a bunch of friends and relatives pop out of nowhere in the last couple of years due to his success. And it's a lot of pressure. But what's crazy, Kelly, is being around him, having the opportunity to talk with him. He's one of the most humble people in
Yeah.
that locker room. It is wild how low key, how humble he is, and it's crazy to see some of the online opinions. And granted, these are losers behind computer
Yeah.
screens who just point fingers and they say Marvin Harrison Jr. is selfish. He's this, he's that, calling him every name in the book, and it's the exact opposite. And when you talk to people who were involved with Arizona during the pre-draft process, when you talk to people at Ohio State, there was one singular thing that popped up with every single conversation. The first thing everybody would bring up, and I'm not being funny, I'm not exaggerating, was his work ethic.
Yeah.
People raved about how hard of a worker he was. And so you take that, you factor in his ability to remain humble, with his dad being a Hall of Fame receiver and him kind of following in the same footsteps, although he wants to carve a different path.
Yeah.
It's a lot. It's a whirlwind of things. And this guy hasn't even stepped onto an NFL field for officially the first time yet. He played in the preseason, played 3 snaps, ran 1 route, didn't get a target. And it feels like there's a lot of pressure on Maserati Marv to help transform this Cardinals offense overnight. And he's certainly talented, but we also got to remember he's still a kid at the same time.
Yeah, for sure. And I can't also comment on that either, but to call someone selfish, it's selfish to me to expect to have a piece of merchandise when we're not even sure that he's getting the best deal. Like, we want him to be successful all around. That's what we should all want. Anyway, I have one more burning question for you. And if anybody's listened to the show for any amount of time, they know that I've made quite a few comparisons between the Cardinals and the Ravens and how they set up tight ends for success in a receiving position while still having plenty of receivers, while still having a strong running game. I think those parallels exist. So talking about that, when we look at Trey McBride last season, nearing 900 yards, didn't even play the whole season. We've got Marvin Harrison Jr., Michael Wilson, Greg Dortch filling in there, getting plenty of targets. Do you still see Trey McBride having another monster season a la Mark Andrews, Lamar Jackson?
Yeah, I think monster season would have to be defined because you'll get some
Sure.
people
Let's say
who would see
let's say 1,000-yard season.
ah you know, my problem, and it's a good problem to have,
Yeah.
but my problem with Arizona's offense is that there's only one football. And Drew Petzing joked with us early in the offseason. He said he's going to petition the league to try to get 2 footballs, just because there's so many talented, capable guys. It's for sure going to be a pick your poison. Honestly, Kelly, I think it's going to be whatever defenses allow, because coordinators can only game plan and match up for so many players, right? You know, you can't double team Marvin Harrison Jr. and then have 2 guys, you know, keeping an eye on a guy like Trey McBride or Michael Wilson or even Greg Dortch. Somebody's going to be open. Someone's going to have a primetime matchup to take advantage of, whether coordinators want to focus on a guy like Trey McBride over the middle or whether it's like Michael Wilson on the opposite side of the boundary. On top of the Cardinals returning one of the top rushing attacks from last season, you can make an argument that they ran the ball so much just because they didn't have Kyler Murray and they didn't have the bona fide weapons that they do now, a la Marvin Harrison Jr. And let's not forget about Zay Jones, who I think is a very quality number 4 receiver to have on any depth chart too. I think he's a very underrated piece in that offense. It's not out of the question. I don't think it's a for sure guarantee, but like, make no mistake about it, Trey McBride is going to get targets. Kyler Murray is going to go to him in third and whatever scenarios. Trey McBride is not a security blanket. He's a weapon. And I think there's a very big distinction between the two. And I think Kyler Murray knows that. I think Drew Petzing knows that. And I do think he'll see plenty of opportunity. 1,000 yards, depends how bad they want to air it out. It really, really does. But I think McBride's only going to get better heading into his first year as a full-time starter. And I think that offense is so underrated right now. And I think people are in for a big, big surprise whenever the ball is actually snapped.
100%. I definitely think top 5 tight end for sure when we look at the tight ends that are out there occupying the space. So call me a homer, but I don't think the numbers lie. So hopefully that carries in. I know we have a lot more targets. But yeah, we mentioned the double teaming. That's really going to come into play, I think, too. So much to talk about, so little time, but we both need to get back to work. I really appreciate you making time for us and hope to catch you at least a few more times this season.
No, of course. So thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
This show is sponsored by Homage. I know you all say it different ways, but you can help support the show by using our link in the description. Whether you're watching or listening, check the description, check out the link, and purchase your favorite team gear or pop culture t-shirts. They've got it all. Check it out at Homage. Thank you. And that's about it. Don't forget to support the show by shopping our link in the description if you're going to be buying any type of t-shirt, sweatshirt, team jacket. We've got it all. You doing that helps keep the show going. It's so appreciated. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, tell your friends, and chat with us on the app formerly known as Twitter. You can find me at Kelly in Phoenix. You can find Shar at Shaff. We'll see you next week with a fresh new episode. Can't wait. Bye.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow The Sick Podcast with Kelly Singh on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.